There's been this news article about men that think that they could beat Serena Williams in tennis, right? That they think that they could actually score a point on her. And it's just not the case. She is stronger than that.
And men's tennis and women's tennis are completely almost two separate sports. So I'm like, if I were to play Andy Murray, I would lose 6-0, 6-0 in 5 to 6 minutes, maybe 10 minutes, because it's true. It's true. It's a completely different sport. The men are a lot faster, and they serve harder, they hit harder. It's just a different game, and I love to play women's tennis, and I only want to play girls because I don't want to be embarrassed. I would not do the tour. I wouldn't do Billie Jean any justice. So Andy, stop it.
Yeah.
I'm not gonna let you kill me.
Hello and welcome to this new video. Today we will review some of the Senate more insane gender identity hearings. Let's dive in.
Do males have an advantage over females biologically in sports?
Again, I'm not a physician and I can't speak to that.
What's your real world experience?
It depends. I mean, there are some people who are born male that I'm faster than if I were to sprint against them, and some that I'm not. Some males that are taller than some women, and some that are shorter.
You don't believe that a biological male has a physical advantage in sports over a biological female?
Not as a definitive statement.
Give me an example. Well, no, I don't think. How many female members of the NBA do you see?
Well, I can say that, there's been this news article about men that think that they could beat Serena Williams in tennis, right? That they think that they could actually score a point on her. And it's just not the case. She is stronger than that.
What's your experience, Ben? Male, female?
Both Serena and Venus lost to the 203rd ranked male tennis player, which they're phenoms for women. My experience, my husband, he swam at University of Kentucky as well. In terms of accolades and in terms of national ranking, I was a much better swimmer than him. He could kick my butt any day of the week without trying.
Okay.
This first woman is insane. She doesn't answer any questions. If you think about it, she will never provide the answer related to the question. And believing that because one woman can beat one man, it means that women and men have the same physical advantage? That's ridiculous. That goes against any type of logic. It's not because a boy that is 10 can beat an adult that kids are as good as adults or as mature. One example doesn't define the rule. And the fact that this person is the president of this association is very worrying. This is what happens when you defer to emotion instead of logic. When you only use feelings instead of logic. This is exactly what happens because you have a feeling that Serena Williams can beat men, when it's actually clearly not the case. Even she admitted that she cannot beat men. I'm very glad that Riley was there to provide a logical argument into it. That Serena Williams and her sister lost to the 203rd ranked male.
This is really a question, not a suggestion. Do I understand your position to be that there are two sexes, but there can be more than two genders?
I wouldn't even say two, and we've got Dr. Lopez here as well, but there's also the definition of intersex. I think that often in these conversations we're conflating sex and gender, and I do want to affirm here that trans women are women. That is their gender.
Okay, but I'm trying to understand. Do you make a distinction between sex and gender?
Yes, sir.
Okay, explain that. Just. Do you think there are more than two sexes?
I believe that there's a definition for intersex as well that I want to acknowledge. But sex is assigned at birth.
I'm just trying to understand. I'm thoroughly confused. So you're born, I'm talking about biology, male, female, and what else?
I believe that intersex is also acknowledged, but again, I'm not a doctor here. What I can
say, what does intersex mean?
Is that there's a difference between sex and gender, and I think in these conversations we're conflating the two.
First of all, intersex is not a sex. It is basically people that have a defect in their body. It is fine On one side you have male and on the other side you have female. Intersex are just people that have defects. It doesn't change the binary aspect of sex. What people believe that gender is actually personality, or the way you perceive yourself. Or what we would say back in the day, how do you dress? Are you a tomboy that likes to play with boys' toys? Or are you more like a female that likes to play with dolls? These are all personality. It doesn't make it a gender. If you're a man and you want to have an amazing training on dating, click on the link in the description below.
Attention, men. Tired of not getting dates? Welcome to Masculine Academy, where we reveal the secrets to land unlimited dates. Learn how to leverage Instagram and use AI to boost your chances of getting dates. Join Masculine Academy today.
There's male, female, and intersex. There's a third sex.
I believe that is true, but I would defer to Dr. Lopez as I'm not a physician.
Okay. And how many genders are there?
I think the gender is expansive and the definitions are always growing. Today I can tell you, I
More
talk to
than
young
five?
people
More
that
than-
talk about non-binary as...
More than 5?
I think the gender is not a binary is what I'm trying
But
to say.
are there more than 5 genders? I'm just trying to understand. Are there more than 5 genders?
Well, I think that there was a time where women wearing pants didn't feel like it was appropriate for their gender, and yet I'm wearing pants today. I think that there are ways that we express our
gender
gender that
that
are
are expansive.
expansive.
Are there more than 5?
I wouldn't subject myself to naming how many genders there are, but what I can say is
there
that
an
gender is a
infinite
reflection.
number?
Excuse me?
There's an infinite number of genders?
I think depending on your culture, there are a lot of different genders that exist. And I can also say that it's a term that's evolving.
It is very interesting that Kelly Robinson, this woman, she's the president of the foundation helping people on the LGBT side. But first, she doesn't know how many sexes there are. Secondly, she cannot define how many genders. The thing is that people conflate way too much gender and personality. Because when you say that it depends on the culture, it depends on other attributes, then this is totally lunacy. For example, there's a gender recently that has been created about people that come from space. I would say that a lot of people that have gender issues usually have related mental issues. If you cannot accept yourself for who you are, how are you expecting me to accept you for who you believe to be? If you're getting value in this video, let us know by clicking on the like button and subscribe for more similar content.
What I'm trying to say is that there is not a definitive advantage in all cases. Sir, I don't know if you believe that you could beat Serena Williams in tennis, but I probably think that that's not the case. There are not all cases where all men are physically superior to all women. And at the end of the day, in this conversation, we're not talking about that. We're talking about trans women who are, in fact, women, who deserve to play in a gender that matches their sports, who deserve all the benefits that Ms. Gaines is talking about. And as a cisgender black woman, I can say definitively that my womanhood is not threatened by a transgender person asserting hers as well.
This is the most illogical argument. You cannot compare pears and apples. If you want to compare the first rank female in the world, you can compare her with the first ranked male. It is very certain that all top 10 male today will beat all the women. It is very certain that all top 10 100 male will beat all the female. That's the reality. You cannot compare one person that is the best with a random guy. It doesn't make any sense. If you compare, you need to compare the same type of level. Compare the NBA with the WNBA. You see that there's a huge gap. Similarly, in football, if you compare the male footballers with the female footballers, there's a huge gap. You cannot compare a professional female footballers with some random dude on the street. Doesn't make any sense. And no one deserves anything. It has to be fair. It's not because you complain that you deserve to be the best in the world that you will be the best in the world. You have to deserve your space. And people tend to forget these days that rights always come with obligations. If you cannot respect other people's right to fairness, why should we respect your right to fairness?
Ms. Robinson, do you agree with Ms. Gaines that there's a difference between women and men?
If the question is about trans women,
I'm just asking, is there a difference between women and men?
I mean, what I can say here is that the NCAA has rules in place. They've had rules in place for the last decade, and when this competition
Okay, I'm
happened,
going to try again.
the rules were clear.
Do you believe there's a difference between women and men? It's a yes/no question. Do you believe there's a difference?
Well, I think that we're talking about this case with the NCAA.
No, I'm asking a question. Do you believe there's a difference between women and men? Most people could answer this very simply. I'm curious if you're willing to do so.
Oh, absolutely. I'm just putting it into the context of the
Is that a yes?
conversation that we're having. I think that there are definitions related to sex.
Is
but
that
I
a
also
yes?
think
So I'm
that when
trying to
we're-
get a yes or no. I'm not trying to get a speech.
I'm
Is there a difference between women and men?
I think that there are definitions for biological sex.
Okay, so you're
which
not
is
answering
different
that.
than
Let me ask
gender.
you this question then. Why do women's sports exist? If you can't define a difference between women and men, why not abolish women's sports and just tell little girls to swim with little boys and see who wins?
Oh, I'm simply saying that that sex is
My
different
question,
than gender.
why
and I do
do-
believe
why
that
do
women's
women's
sports have a great
exist?
value. I mean, Senator, I'll tell you right
Ms.
now.
Robinson, please answer the question I'm asking you.
Absolutely.
Why do women's sports exist?
I think that there are so many positive benefits to sports.
But
I mean,
why have a
we've talked
separate
about it here
category for
today.
women? If there's no difference between women and men, why to have women's sports?
I'm saying that there's a difference between sex and gender, and that the NCAA has rules in place, which they have for the
So,
last decade.
Mr. Chairman,
which
I
determine
would
that
like to enter into
related
the
to
record an
participation.
article from Duke Law called Comparing Athletic Performances for the Best Elite Women to Boys and Men. And it goes through examining in 2017 the top records for women in the world in various track and field events. So, for example, in the 100 meter, the top record for women in the world was 10.71 seconds. Now, that record for the number one woman in the world in 2017 was, in the year 2017, broken by 124 boys under 18. In that same year, the record for the number one competing woman in the 100-meter dash in the world was broken by a total of 2,474 men. If the radical Democrat agenda to destroy girls' sports and women's sports succeeds, little girls will not have a chance to compete. So I ask unanimous consent that this article be entered into the record.
It is just insane the lack of good faith this woman has. She's a pure liar. And that should never be acceptable in our society. Someone that lies like this in front of the Judiciary Committee, that should never be tolerated. Because she knows deep down that there's a huge difference between boys and girls. We have two separate categories, otherwise all the trophies will go to men only. And as you can see, boys like 15, 16, 17 are actually already much better than the best female in the world. So what do we want? Do we want to eliminate women's sports? These people that pretend they are good people just want to get rid of women's sports.
Left the locker room and I went up to one of the officials on the pool deck and I said, what are the guidelines to allow a man into our locker room? I know the guidelines for the competition, but what are the guidelines for the locker room? And he so nonchalantly said back, oh, we actually got around this by making locker rooms unisex. And so I'm thinking to myself in these brief moments, first and foremost, you just admitted this is a male by acknowledging how you had to change your rules to make the locker rooms unisex. You acknowledge that we do not share the same sex, first and foremost. Secondly, unisex? Any man could have walked into our locker room, any coach, any official, any man who wanted to would have had full reins to, and bare minimum, we weren't forewarned about it. And that's the traumatizing part. Of course, the experience in and of the locker room itself is traumatizing, but I think for me, it was so easy for them to dismiss our rights to privacy.
Exactly. That's all about getting rid of women's rights. And that should never be acceptable.
Leaders there recently received an official email that prohibited them from using pronouns or descriptors like he, she, youngest, oldest, male, or female. Why is that? I mean, what's going on?
Senator Hawley, thank you for that question. Actually, that is, we've been talking a lot about that because it was an email, from my understanding, that went out locally from one of the commanders there, and I don't remember at what level. I don't know if it was a group commander or the wing commander there. I believe that it was a Facebook post that went out based on a question. It is not the Air Force policy to not use pronouns. And so I think it was a social media, exacerbated by individuals that said that they were directed for that.
The fact that this was sent in the first place indicates what type of ideology are already in the Air Force. It's very sad to see the military being impacted so much by dreadful ideologies. Not being able to use people's pronouns just for the sake of the ideology, the gender ideology. This is dreadful for the army. When you think about it and you see that so many people in different countries are preparing for war, or they are preparing their kids to be great people, and you see that in the US, they are preparing their kids for gender ideology, I would say that this is an internal cancer. And if it wasn't for social media, we wouldn't even know about it. And it's very likely that this type of attitude, prohibiting people's pronouns, will be widespread in the military. If you want to see more similar content about gender identity IDs, I suggest you to watch this video.